This is an introduction to the first typography projects which you have. They're found in Blackboard in the content area under Typography Weeks 1 to 4 Typography Projects. These typography projects start with Expressive Type Phase 1, and I'll explain to you what this is all about and give you examples, and then we will begin setting up your first document in InDesign. So let's begin with Expressive Type Phase 1, the assignment and the examples. In these assignments, you are to select 4 related quotations or statements. Suggestions include quotes or statements from or about a person, event, series or of events, or an era or time in history. Musical lyrics or poetry or prose are acceptable. The main focus here is to create designs that amplify the content of the statements. In the first phase, you're going to create a 4-page InDesign document, and you are to design in a 5-inch square for each statement. Each statement is to be in grayscale, black and white, and you are to design with 1 statement per page, and you are limited to using only 12-point Times New Roman and or Helvetica in the 5-inch square. Now, in order to give you an example, this is the example of 4 different quotations or statements. This one happens to be from The Great Gatsby, and I'll run them down so you can see. He starts by putting the statement on the top, and then in the 5-inch square, using only Times New Roman 12 points, he expresses the statement. Then the next one is down here, followed by the 3rd one, and then finally the 4th one. All of these are limited to 12-point type, either the Times New Roman or the Helvetica, and as you can see, they are all in grayscale, or in his case, black and white. Now, let me go into the next one. The second phase of the type project, you're going to use the same statements or quotations, and this time you are allowed to use any size you wish, any fonts you wish. The emphasis is on typography in the design. Color is also an option and also highly recommended. The only restriction in this example, in these designs, is that you are not to use photographic or illustrated images. Again, the main challenge is to amplify the content of the statements in each design. In this second phase, you will increase the size to a 5 by 7-inch frame on your master page. Finally, taking the same statements or quotations, we're going to go to phase 3. Now, phase 3 is using the same ones, and now the frame size is expanded to 6 by 8, and in this case it could be either landscape or portrait orientation. In this one, it is important that each statement now is going to include a photographic or illustrated image with complementary typography. Again, the whole design should amplify the content of the statements. Now, I will show you an example of the third phase, and I'll go back and I'll show you the example of the second phase. Here's the third phase of the same statements that you saw in phase 1. This is the I like parties. They're intimate. Here he is incorporating the type with images. Again, the challenge is now to let the type complement the imagery. And here is the one with the life starts all over again when it gets crisp in the fall. So these are the third phase using photographs or imagery that go along with the type. Again, this is a different concept, a different approach, and you'll be working with the picture. In his case, this example, he's kept it portrait orientation. When you decide on yours, you will, whatever images you want to use, it will be up to you if you'd like to go landscape or portrait. Now let's return to the phase 2 so you can see the same quotes done in phase 2, same statements. So here is the same statements, and here there are no photographs, but in phase 2 he is free to use color and to change the fonts, and he has some graphic elements in here which are perfectly acceptable. So these give you the same 4 statements, and you can see the frame size has been expanded to 5 inches across by 7 inches high. And here you'll notice, besides changing fonts, you can employ different techniques in order to try to enhance amplify the meaning, the content of these statements or phrases or quotations. Here is a little fall of rain. So this is an example of the phase 2. Now that you've seen all of the first 3 phases, I want you to launch InDesign and follow along with me. We're going to create a new document so that you may get started on your phase 1. Now hit create new, and in this area hit the print button. You want a letter, and right now let's go to units and make it into inches. The orientation will be portrait. Uncheck facing pages, please. Take that out. And right now we'll just keep it as is, like this. So I'm going to have you hit create, and you're going to have your page in InDesign. Now, as we did with the tessellation project in Illustrator, I urge you to review the introduction to InDesign tutorials from Adobe in the folder in Blackboard at the top of your content area. And you should all be familiar with InDesign to the point where we can begin this process. Now, for this lesson, you will need to have the control panel showing. You will need the Pages panel, which is right there. And, of course, you will need your Tool panel. So, for this project, I have to get my thing so I can show you what to do. All right, I want you to double click and bring up the A master page. So now we're looking at the master, and since our design area for the first phase will be a 5 by 5 square, we're going to put that 5 by 5 square on our master page so that it will occur on all of the 4 pages. So take your rectangle tool here, come out onto your page and click. Type in 5, tab 5, and hit OK. Now take your selection tool, the black arrow, and move this over so that it is in the center of your page. And you'll notice in InDesign that you'll see a pink line that indicates that you have landed your center point of your square on the center point of the document. Now, from your experience with Illustrator and your previous experience with InDesign, you will note that at the bottom of your tool panel there is a indication of your stroke and your fill. So for this one, bring the stroke in the front and hit this button here, apply color, and it's going to be black. So if it's not black, if it's not there, we're going to go to Window, Color, Swatches, and that's how you access the Swatches panel. And you will hit black for the stroke, which is what we want. So now click outside, and you have now indicated the frame size for this lesson. Now return to your page panel here and double click page 1, and you'll notice now that the frame that you incorporated on the master page is reflected on page 1, and you try to click on it, you can't because it is in the master page, and that's quite all right. Now I want you to add 3 more pages by hitting the Create New Page button at the bottom of the page panel. There's page 2, page 3, and page 4. Now, at this point, let's return to page 1, and this is where you would begin to incorporate. You'll type in a statement, and at this point, before we begin to do that, I want you to go to File, Save As, and call this ExpTYPE1, and place it onto a folder that you know where you can locate it, and hit Save. In the next lesson, we will incorporate a text box. We'll make the text, and I'll show you how to begin the lesson for the ExpTYPE 1.